Hi guys, hope everyone's well and welcome back to the Improvement Podcast. So this is going to be on Peri-Workout Nutrition. Peri basically meaning nutrition around your workout. So this is something that can be very valuable to consider, especially if you're wanting to squeeze all the 1 and 2% out of your training or even your 5%, you know what I mean? If you want to if you're nailing the basics, if you're eating enough, sleeping well, and you're training hard, then this is something you should definitely consider because if you want to maximize your progress, then you shouldn't leave much stones unturned, if that makes sense. So, I'm going to jump on how how pre-workout, intra-workout, and post-workout nutrition can affect your progress and why you want to consider them. But first of all, I'm going to give you an update on myself. So, currently, this just below or just under 3 weeks into my dieting phase. It was going really well. Training performance is still on the high. I'm not performing or I'm not progressing as fast as when I was in gaining phase. However, I'm still progressing, which is the main thing, and that's what we're obviously after. So yeah, I'm happy with how it's going. I'm enjoying the process and I'm enjoying seeing some changes. I'm not seeing anything extreme. Usually when you first start your diet, you don't look as big, you don't look as full because you've got less carbs. You're depleted, if that makes sense. And as well as that, my body fat's still high, so I'm not seeing a lot of detail. So I've not seen anything extreme or that or really exciting, but it will come. It will definitely come, especially after this check-in and the one after. When I start getting leaner and I start seeing the visual changes under the body fat and it's all getting taken off. So yeah, everything's going well and enjoying it. I'm not feeling too hungry or too tired. I'm getting to that stage where I'm looking forward to my next meal. I'm like, oh, when am I going to eat? I'm getting a bit more food focused, thinking about food a bit more. And my energy, I'm recording this at 6:30. I've had a really busy day and I do feel pretty tired. My eyes feel heavy, etc. But nothing we can't handle, of course, it'll be all good. At the end of the day, I've still got a nutritious diet that other people aren't that fortunate to have, so I can't really complain, can I? So starting off, pre-workout nutrition. So you want to make sure your pre-workout nutrition's in place. Why? Because it will set you up for success in your session. So you want to make sure you're just prepared to have a good session. So in terms of when you should eat it, I recommend doing so about 30 to 60 minutes before your session. So this is dependent on the individual too. So let's say you've just finished a diet, you're on low calories, or you're in a dieting phase and you feel like your stomach's absolutely empty 20 minutes after eating it, then you can probably get away with it. Whereas, let's say you're bulking, you're eating 4,500 calories like I was, and you've just ate a massive meal before your session. You probably don't want to be training and doing anything 20 minutes after. You might want to leave it slightly more if you can because you'll feel sluggish, it won't be proper digested, whereas you'll digest food better when you're dieting, when you've not got as much food coming in. So yeah, it depends what phase you're in. And just personal, it's just dependent on the individual. Who am I to say you should wait 60 minutes if when it gets to 60 minutes you start feeling hungry again, it just doesn't work for your routine and you feel like you can train on 30 minutes and your performance is worse. So it's not like there's a set in stone figure. So play about with it, keep it consistent, and then what I like to say is if something's consistent, then you can change it. If you don't have consistency, you don't know if it's working, you don't know if it's not working, and you don't know if it's broke or if it could be improved. You need to keep things the same in order to actually spot improvements. If you keep chopping and changing things, you have no idea. And next up, just about as every meal in the day should, you should have some protein in your meal. Ideally 25 grams or more. The reason why is we want 25 grams for it to be effective. So protein basically spikes muscle protein synthesis, and this just helps us recover and puts us in a good state to grow muscle. So that's all you really need to know about it. And for most folk, you need 25 grams. If you're a smaller person, let's say you're a very light female, you probably can get away with 20. But I'd just try and, unless you have a really, really good reason not to, I'd just go for 25 grams. You might as well. And yeah, like I said, it spikes muscle protein synthesis, puts you in a good place to grow muscle, which is probably why you're listening to this, because you're interested in growing muscle or losing body fat. And if you are just interested in losing body fat, the more muscle you have, the more body fat you burn. So next up, we want to consider how much fat we're having before our session. The reason being is fat slows down how fast we release carbohydrates. There's also other roles of fat, but for the purpose of this podcast, all we need to know is it slows down how fast we really release carbohydrates. So we don't want to have no fat during our pre-workout meal, because if we are on, let's say you're on really low calories, like let's say you're me at the moment, I'm doing quite a harsh cut, and if I didn't have fat, then I'll just burn through my carbohydrates. I won't have any towards the end of my session. And as a result, my blood sugar levels will drop, my performance will drop, and basically I won't have any energy available, because carbs are used for energy. So if we've not got fat to keep it slowly releasing, I'll just run out, if that makes sense. I'll just spike up, blood sugar will spike down, and then I'll not perform well during my session. So that's something to definitely consider. And as for carbohydrates, about 70 to 80 grams would be ideal. But obviously it depends how much carbohydrates you're on. For example, someone who's, let's say like a 50 kilo female will have much less than a 100 kilo male. So it is person dependent, but just make sure you've got a decent amount, and an amount you feel like you're satisfied with, you have energy with around your session. But yeah, I think if you have enough carbohydrates in your diet to eat a lot before and after your session, that's where you should be prioritizing it. Yes, it might mean you're hungry in the morning, but if you're wanting to perform your very best, this is where you should eat the most carbohydrates, basically. But obviously, if it's unsustainable doing so and you need to spread them out because you can't stick to your diet otherwise, then that becomes more important. But that's a topic for another day. So as for intra-workout, intra is just during. So this is just meaning during your workout. We want to limit muscle protein breakdown and increase muscle protein synthesis. So what does these fancy words mean? So when we train, we break down our muscles by lifting weights, usually on the way down, the eccentric portion, when we're lowering the weight. And muscle protein synthesis, we get that through protein, and like it spikes muscle protein synthesis, and that basically puts us in a state where we grow and repair our muscle. So if you think about it, if you have a lot of muscle protein breakdown, it's like digging yourself in a hole. So if you dig yourself in a hole, to recover and then grow muscle, you need to get yourself out the hole at first, and then you have to jump up and then increase from there. Whereas if we can not break down, then it means we won't have a hole and we can just go up and then build muscle. We won't have ourselves getting broken down a lot during our sessions if we limit it. And then we can just spend less time recovering, train more frequently, progress more frequently, as a result, grow more muscle. So, to get in how we can limit muscle protein breakdown. We know insulin basically slows down how fast we break down muscle, which can be done by having carbohydrates. So if you ever see people have like carbs during their session in the form of powder, like cyclic dextrin is one of them I use. There's dextrose, there's all sorts, maltodextrin, cluster dextrin, but basically taking carbs during your session stops you breaking down as much muscle, and you're not as sore. To basically put it simple and not confuse you. So I recommend, if you can afford it, have some carbohydrate powder during your session. I use cyclic dextrin from MyProtein. It's not much different from other companies, to be fair, and it's a good price, so that's what I use. And Ben, I think it's Ben P for discount, or go on Ben Prentice's Instagram, use his discount code, and you'll get some money off. I'm sure he said his YouTube video that he makes more. He has a bigger discount than Eddie Hall, so he must be bigger. And as for how you can increase muscle protein synthesis, or in other words, put you in a better state to build muscle, essential amino acids do that. So protein is made up of essential amino acids. And so it's basically like broken down protein. You could look at it, and this can be consumed in a beverage, in water, as well as cyclic dextrin just to increase your muscle protein synthesis, put you in a better position to build muscle and perform well and make more progress. Simple as that. So I recommend taking 3 grams of leucine worth. So whatever, like, if you ever have essential amino acids, if you read the back, it'll tell you how much is in like 10 grams. And 10 grams is usually like 3 grams of leucine, but look on it. If you're not sure and it doesn't tell you in the back, just shove in 15 grams. Be aware, these carbs and these essential amino acids will have calories in them. However, what I recommend is put them in your diet, just keep them in, and then you don't have to worry about the calories. In my diet, I don't track the calories I have in my intra-workout because it doesn't change year round. So what really matters when you're dieting isn't how much calories you're eating, it's eating less for you to lose weight. So as long as it's the same and I'm not changing it or having more one day and less other, then I'll be all good. And the reason why you don't want to eat a protein shake and a banana for carbs and protein during your session is because when we're training, we're in a sympathetic state. So we're in a roused state. We're in a state where we don't digest food well. And carbohydrate powder and essential amino acids don't need a lot of digesting. They're kind of broken down already, so we just use them when we consume them. And yeah, we're ready to go. So we don't want a lot of food sitting in our stomach, because if we do need to digest food, that's blood getting taken away from the muscles we're training and into our stomach instead. So that's not really going to help, because we know blood basically helps us recover and perform well during our sets. And in terms of hydration, something very, very important, being even slightly dehydrated is shown to have a negative effect on your performance. So I just recommend having like 1.5 litre during your session. Depends how long your session is, of course, but I think that's a good rule to stick by, something like that. And the reason being is, 1, so you're hydrated. 2, because in order to be able to transport carbs into our muscles, which help us like just basically perform well and us to recover, we need around 1.5 litres to 2 litres, I believe, because it just basically aids it, simple as that. I remember seeing that, which I think is very valuable, because you could be taking the supplements during your session, but you could be holding yourself back by how much water you're drinking, which is something weird to think, and quite not shocking, but quite interesting, I think. And next up, the last supplement you can take during your session that I take is a hydration formula. As it says on the tin, it's to hydrate you, so you're not dehydrated during your session, because if, like I said, if you're dehydrated, you don't perform as well. So it just makes sure you're in a good spot to perform. And if you don't want to buy a hydration formula, you can just put salt in your drink. This might sound minging, but if you've got essential amino acids, they'll be flavoured and you won't taste it. So simply put in about 3 grams of salt in is ideal, 2 to 3 grams. And that will ensure you're hydrated if you don't want to buy a hydration formula, and take care of those needs. So I think that covers intra-workout pretty much fine. Saying that, talking about salt, also salt your meals before and after your session. If you don't want to weigh your food and weigh the salt, just salt it until you can taste it, until it's got a nice taste to it. Or if you want to weigh it, put 2 to 3 grams of salt on each meal, then that would be ideal. So, jumping into post-workout. You should eat your post-workout once you are in a relaxed state. So, you shouldn't jump off your last set and tan a protein shake. That's not necessary. You don't need to do it immediately after 15 minutes, but it's a good reason to. If you feel like you're relaxed, you're able to eat the food without any like stomach discomfort from training, then do so. And the reason why you should have carbohydrates better is because you simply utilize them better after your session. So we store glycogen in our muscles, right? Glycogen is glucose, which is from carbs. and we use that for energy. So we've used our energy, so we'll have less glycogen stores. And this is a good reason to have carbs, so we can replenish them. Saying that, it doesn't happen, like, we don't have zero glycogen stores in our muscles after a session. Or we very, 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 very rarely do. Unless you're got no body fat on you and you basically have no carbs for, I don't know for how long. I'm not sure, but it doesn't go to zero. Usually we deplete like 40% of it. However, regardless if it's got benefit for like filling up our glycogen stores, it's a time where we are usually hungry, so it makes sense to have it then. And yeah, we utilize carbohydrates better as well as obviously our glycogen stores being a bit emptier. So if we utilize it better, we have opportunity to put the carbs directly into our muscles, help them recover. And if we recover better, like I said, we'll perform better in our next session. We'll be able to do more work and recover from more, and still progress while doing more work. Next up, muscle protein synthesis. Again, just eat protein around your session. 25 grams of protein worth is ideal. Get from whatever you like, but just make sure it sits well as always, and something you can enjoy, so you stick to it. As for fats, you don't really need fats after your session. The reason being is we want to get carbs in our muscles as soon as possible. So unless it's like your last meal of the day, then you might want to, but you don't really need to have fats after your workout, because it kind of just disrupts what we're trying to do. Get carbs in our muscle as fast as possible, while also spiking muscle protein synthesis to put us in a good place to recover. So just think, muscle protein breakdown isn't bad. It kind of triggers muscle growth, but muscle protein synthesis should be looked at as, we want that. We don't want a lot of muscle protein breakdown. So if we can have more muscle protein synthesis, that's good. You know what I mean? We should want that. And I think that's pretty much it. Just make sure before your session as well, don't know if I touched on it, whatever you're eating sits well with you, digests really well, and you feel like you can train. Because you don't want to have like deep fried Mars bar or a pizza or something like that ridiculous before your session that bags you up a lot. So bear that in mind. And yeah, so like I said, if you are a beginner, you don't need to do these. They will help, definitely, but you don't need to. And if you're someone who doesn't like eating the same thing every day, what you could do is you could just keep your pre-workout and post-workout meal the same. Maybe have an intra-workout. And the reason why is because it's going to be a lot of a pain trying to hit your calories while still having the right amount of fats, protein, carbs before and after your session. My apologies, I didn't even touch on carbs post-workout. So carbs post-workout, again, it depends how much carbs you have, but something like 90 to 120 is probably like a good rough idea of what you want. The reason being is because, like I said, this is where we can digest it best. So it makes sense to do so. Like, why wouldn't we, you know what I mean? And of course, stay hydrated throughout the day. Hydrated going into your session. Salt both meals. I think that's answered about everything. If I left anything unanswered about like Peri-Workout Nutrition, just let me know and I'll be more than happy to answer it and expand further, whether if it's through Instagram, I'll give you a voice note or whatever. But yeah, thank you very, very much for listening. If you have done, feel free to share this on your story. It'd be much appreciated. Or like it, subscribe, follow, whatever you're listening on, whatever you can do to support it. It's greatly appreciated as always. So yeah, hope you enjoyed this one and took some value out of it. Cheers.